So here's we have 49 responses now. So this is the quiz. Okay, first of all, you all failed. Of a possible 0 points, 100% of people submitting this quiz have been auto-graded at 0. But beyond that, you can go read what the quiz asks. The first thing asks who you are, like where you are in your career. You can see, because I posted on LinkedIn, most people responding are in the middle of their career, like 6 to 15 years. But I wanted to hear from everybody. So I know a lot of the people listening live to the stream tend to be more here, so you can balance out this graph. And then there's Ed. I don't know how old Ed is, but Ed will add some usual salty answers. So you can answer these questions, but here's what I found most interesting that we're going to work on. The first question is, why have you been stuck in your career? If you've ever been stuck, why have you been stuck? Let me see if I can blow this up a little. It's amazing technology. All right. If you've ever been stuck in your career, here's why. Here's some whys. The biggest thing is most of you don't know what the hell you want to do when you grow up. That's the most common answer. I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. The second most common answer is I need encouragement, mentorship, or support. So we're going to come back to that idea. Because if I ask what has helped you succeed, the most common answer is I have a good boss. Access to a mentor, opportunities. We'll talk about some of this. Which of the following would help you grow? Look at where did this? People are answering and it's popping me back to the top, which is okay. The number one thing you all want is access to mentorship, which is partly what I do here, but I think we could organize, because the number two thing you want, sorry about the jumping around, is support from peers and other professionals. So keep answering, feel free. But what I'm going to do is I just want to let you know I'm listening. And I'm going to take this away and figure out how we can use our Discord and use this community to better organize access to mentorship and support of peers and other professionals. And I have a lot of ideas around this. I'm going to go to my own coach about it. 40 Pink Dragons and I are super excited about it. And we really want to lean into this. So, I should have asked these questions years ago, but now I'm doing it. So better than too late. All right. We'll bring Kristen on now in just a second. Well, let's do it now. So, hey, there she is, but I have to clearly adjust the size of this window. Wonder why that's not working, because we see 1/10 of your face. So that's my fault somehow. Wonder why that is. Good old Zoom. It's because I was playing with Zoom for other presentations I did. So, properties of that window. Come on.
So this survey that you did is pretty cool. It lines up with a lot of conversation that I've been having with some of my peers.
Yeah.
And I actually just did our last town hall, which is like 3 different teams, anyone underneath my boss. And I actually presented on mentorship and leveraged a whole lot of things that I've learned from you on this channel, as well as from some of the other mentors that I've gotten because of being mentored by you on this channel.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I pulled together this this presentation and partnered with somebody else on the team, and we had a really great response. Lots of people are interested, kind of echoing like the same thing, that they just don't know where to start, and they're not sure what to expect, and that kind of stunts them from actually trying. So I'll be interested to see how that goes, but we're kind of working on an informal mentorship program that I'm kind of spearheading alongside additional training and upskilling and continued learning for our team.
Sweet. That's awesome. And it's clearly a need. Look, so for everybody who's listening, and I'm going to go back to where I can see chat here real quick. If you're listening, clearly what a lot of you want is encouragement and support. And the first thing I want to do is encourage you. And I'll do more of that in future streams, but I'll just encourage you to say, I've said this before, I will say it again briefly. If you're listening to this stream, you have so many advantages in life. You may not feel like it, but you speak and listen to English. You have access to a computer and the internet. You have enough free time that you're investing in improving yourself. Your life is going to go great. You may not feel that way. You may feel like it's going like shit, but your life is going to go great. And just be a little bit patient. It's going to be fantastic. And Kristen's a living example of this. I've been working with her maybe 15, 18 months. Is that about right?
It was a year in August.
Yeah, 18 months. And back then, she was an individual contributor, relatively new to her job. Now she's managing 2 teams. And her question for me is, how do I get the most out of my meetings with executives? That's 18 months. I know many of you are impatient. But I think Kristen would tell you, I won't put words in her mouth. Are you a regular person, Kristen?
Yeah.
Were you born with a silver spoon in your mouth?
I'm just a normal person, has the same fears as everybody else. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I'm just willing to keep trying.
Were your parents incredibly rich?
No.
Incredibly well educated?
No.
Okay. I've met her parents, by the way. They're fabulous, interesting people. I've met her mom. They're interesting people. They're rich, vivid people. But they're not Bill Gates and Melinda Gates. They're not Steve Jobs. So just from a privilege viewpoint, she's doing great. You can all do that. You can all succeed. And Kristen has the challenge as a woman in IT. She's working in the IT industry, leading an IT team, glass ceiling, blah, blah, blah. She's in my lovely home state of Ohio, where sometimes that can be a challenge. She's doing great. So we have one more thing to talk about, and then we'll jump in. When Kristen was last out here, pre-COVID, she gifted me with some Westland American Oak whiskey. So we made a drink out of that tonight. We have some other friends who gifted us. This will be a little harder to see. This is Crown maple syrup, but it's bourbon barrel aged. And when looking for something to do with the whiskey, we found a cinnamon maple syrup whiskey sour that uses maple syrup as the sweetener.
Interesting.
And so that's what I'm having. I'm drinking it in the Highland glass from Sean123. And there's a couple shots in here. So as you see this disappear, my advice will either get worse or spicier.
It always gets more fun either way. I don't know if it's better or worse, but
gets more honest. So I took a few notes. Kristen's questions to me were about how to get the most out of a meeting with executives. But I will take questions at the end, or Kristen and I will. And I want to encourage you, if you have questions about how to work with executives, I want to cover a few things that are not problems for Kristen, but maybe for the rest of you. I've done this show before, and I've talked about it before. Some people are intimidated by executives. I'm often told, even though I don't try to be, that I come off as a mean son of a bitch, as demanding, as difficult, as scary, as intimidating. And look, I am driven and focused, and I'm loud, and I'm big. And so I get that there's a risk there, and I get where some of it comes from. I'm also very results oriented, but I am not actually a mean son of a bitch, if I do say so myself.
How different is your personality at work than what we see on the stream?
I work harder at being nice at work than on the stream.
Really?
Yeah, because on the stream, it's my show, and it feels like fun to be, I have the assassin personality, and I rip up people's resumes, and it's like more of a show.
Yeah.
But to be fair, at work, sometimes I'm under pressure. And so I'm never under pressure on the stream. And I can, when you're under pressure, you sometimes snap. So some things I've done that I'm not proud of and have been mistakes. I've been frustrated at work. And the worst thing I probably have ever done in hindsight is when I'm really frustrated, slap the table. Like just whack the table. It's like, damn, that isn't, and so I've done that. And that's, look, fail, okay? Epic fail on the boss. Still, I'm only, won't make excuses. That is bad behavior, and I shouldn't do it. But I'm trying to get to a result. So this is the part to understand about executives. They're busy. They play very high stakes poker. This is worth sharing. It will help you, Kristen. And I appreciate you asking me the question. You can be the voice of the crowd here since they're silent.
Okay.
The thing is, executives, I've often said, not always on the show, but it's true. If a normal person is struggling in a job, they get put on what's called a performance plan. They get a talking to and like, here's where you're falling short, and here's some guidance and some mentorship, and we're going to write down a plan and goals. As an executive, I've often said you're lucky if people tell you that you're not hitting goals before they fire you.
Yeah.
And in fact, this is enshrined in law, by the way. The whole idea that like you're due a fair shake at work and that there has to be cause for termination actually legally does not apply to executives. Like what are called officers of the company can be let go at any time for any reason with like just we're done with you. And I agree with this. Like so in that environment though, executives worry a lot, right? They're always looking over their shoulder. Because the rules of the game a little bit are like you're losing us. If Kristen, let's ask it this way. If you totally screw up your job, you just mail it in and do a shit job, how much money can you cost your employer?
Honestly, probably not very much, because at the end of the day, the things that cost the most don't stop with me. That approval would have came from above me.
Right. So I was in a position, I ran a couple different businesses that were $500 million a year. And if I really screw them up, I can cost the company hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's fair game, right? I got paid well, but it's fair game that if I'm doing a poor job, they just kind of walk in and say, hey, you're done, pack your desk. Like, you're losing us money, get lost. Mm-hmm. So in that world, executives are kind of stress puppies. Now, that doesn't excuse bad behavior, but it does explain it. And I'll use those phrases a lot if you listen to the show long enough. You can differentiate between excusing people behaving badly, including me, and understanding why they do it. And when you're stressed out about results, you can be very short with people. But here's the thing I want to say that's positive. Executives are trying to get to the right answer to a success point. They're super busy and they're worried, which can make them seem stressed and short. But if you can help them succeed or talk to them like regular people, they still have wives, have kids, have husbands, put their pants on one leg at a time, commute to work. Like, they're regular folks. And by the way, they don't wish to be scary. They only want to be effective. And they like, by the way, good executives. Pissant executives get upset when you challenge them, but good ones like honest input and feedback, and they're not threatened.
So it's interesting because I work for an organization where people don't really get fired unless like you really mess up. Like that's not common. Maybe it's because we're a nonprofit. I don't know, but it has, we still have a problem. I still see some executives behaving with this type of mindset. And for them, I think it's more territorial and fear of losing territory because maybe they're not like meeting numbers or whatever it is. But it's kind of the opposite problem. And one of the crazy ideas that I had actually recently when I was chatting with someone was like, what would happen in an organization like this if every few years or whatever, like VPs, directors and up, I'd say, what if you had to like reapply for your job or like reapply to stay in whatever area you're in? Because I don't think it's necessarily a fear of losing your job so much as a fear of losing your territory. And so I was like thinking, what would that look like? And how would that eradicate complacency, or would that make it worse? Because we do have some executives, in my opinion, who operate out of a scarcity mindset and have this fear of losing their territory and kind of, I think, want to come across intimidating. And maybe those aren't good executives, but or
Well, they're
maybe
not. And look,
understand.
you have the same problem. Okay, so we have to always discriminate. When am I dealing with crappy people in any job, crappy individual contributors, crappy managers, or crappy bosses, and crappy executives? And those who want to intimidate don't know another way to leave, as to lead. They don't know another way to lead, and they're afraid. That doesn't make them good or easy to work with, though, right? Like a fearful executive who's being difficult is a problem. And just like you and I have talked about imposter syndrome, sometimes executives have imposter syndrome. Like unfortunately, it's a real thing for execs to also have imposter syndrome. And if you don't know, if you don't know what imposter syndrome is, it means that you're afraid that people will find out you're not really qualified for your job and you're not good at it. So you have an executive, he or she is making good money, wants to keep making good money, and is worried they're not actually that good at their job. And lots of people have imposter syndrome. This isn't limited to executives, but it can happen there. And that can make them fearful. And fear almost always makes people behave badly because they're reacting out of emotion and they're trying to medicate their emotions. So, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I had necessarily a question. It was more just of an observation of
Okay.
different cultures and different types of issues that might cause stress for executives. And it's almost, I mean, we could go about my topics backwards if you want, because I kind of just introduced some of this culture
Sure.
change trying to implement.
It's your
So,
time. So people,
you
if you have questions about the topics, there's something wrong with our chat bot, and I'm getting that fixed in parallel. I think it just needs my Twitch credentials again. But yeah, while I fix that, you'll be able to input questions. We'll get the instructions up in a minute. Meanwhile, let me know what you would. Well, you can hold your questions or put them in if you remember how using the extension. Meanwhile, Kristen, yeah, what do you want to talk about?
yeah, let's talk about the culture piece first, because I think that's good context for the other question I had around talking with execs. So, okay, so I work in the healthcare industry, which is notorious for being kind of behind, right? That healthcare and finance are two of the industries that are oftentimes a little bit behind, especially when it comes to technology. And I'm in IT in healthcare. So, so there's already, a lag. And throughout this pandemic, what has been made clear to our stakeholders, to our, our senior level leadership, is that digital and technology it's needed, and we have to expedite how we handle this, because virtual health is here and it's here to stay, and it's only going to improve. And our competition isn't going to be the healthcare system in another part of the state. It's going to be Amazon. It's going to be Google, right? Like there's legitimate competition that's coming out of that. And so we have to get with the program. And so I've been tasked. So let me back up for those of you who aren't familiar. I don't come from an IT background. I was a project manager in the past for a small design studio, so design and development, because I come from a marketing background and I wanted to work with creative people because I didn't have the hard skills, but I had the desire to be creative. And that led me one thing to another. Somehow I ended up here. My boss has repeatedly told me he hired me for my attitude. And if he ever needs me to polish up some skills, he knows I can do that, and I can always learn that. So that's the first thing that I'll caveat with. When I came in, he made it very clear to me that he wanted my title to be generic as manager for the enterprise software engineering department. Because he didn't want me pigeonholed into one specific team or program or technology. And over the last year, he put me in charge of our cloud team, very, very small team. And the other team I already was overseeing was quality and automation, which has now shifted towards an automation focus. So when you get into it, if you know anything about cloud or automation, you know that the two of those together really create the foundation for DevOps. So all of this is stuff that I've learned on the job over the past year, right? I didn't know any of this. I just
Yeah, I don't think you would have said the word DevOps a year ago.
I probably would not have. No, I understand way more than I care to understand about this stuff. And so he's kind of said it, he's been setting me up, and I've been having to work on a lot of strategy. And this is actually some new stuff, Ethan, for you, is I've decided I am going to go for the director role. I think that that's what has been laid out before me. And I think that I've been operating in a way that I've been already having to work in some ways as a director, because the position that my boss put me in was really to set foundations and strategy, and for things that I don't really do. And so I couldn't get into the nitty gritty work of the work. Like I just couldn't. I've had to stay at a higher level and help manage strategy and get people to develop the skills and have them lead and me influence them. So I feel pretty confident that that's the direction I'm going to go. And so what's happening is, if I were to reduce of all the things that I could do, like we talk about the magic loop all the time, what is it that I can do for my boss, right? That's going to make me effective, make me successful. And if I could boil it down to one thing that I am tasked with this year, it is culture change. It is building a bridge with other parts of our teams, infrastructure, network, desktop, all of those people who primarily work with managing data from an on-premise perspective. And I have to convince them to change, because the teams I'm leading are the exact same things that they do in terms of infrastructure, but in a different environment. And so I have to educate people on cloud and automation who are afraid that cloud and automation are going to take their jobs. And I have managers who are afraid of what's going to happen to their teams, because because of some of the cultural issues, a lot of the individual contributors have not upskilled and they haven't learned how to adapt. And so therefore we have a culture of complacency. And so my boss brings me in as someone not to deal or understand any of this technical jargon that I've been having to learn, but to initiate change through relationship building, through challenging, asking good questions, all of those types of things. So that's what I'm up against this year. And I have been it feels like a cold call. Like I talk with my teams, I find out kind of a priority of who should I get to know first. And I'm just reaching out to people. Hey, I'd like to get to know you and better understand like what your teams do and how like we can support you. And I'm just doing that, and I'm meeting with people, and I'm having these half-hour introductions with all these different managers. And then what's happening is we happen to have a production issue, and I happen to get in a call, and one of those managers happens to be there. And now I already started building this relationship, and I can just feel the difference in the way that they're responding to my team's involvement, because I have met with them one time. And so it's just this whole process of me and I can't do it all, right? I can't do this on my own. And I don't think I'm the only person that's probably trying to drive this, but that is my metric for success. That's what it's going to come down to for this year. So I asked my boss, give me 1 year. Now that I know what I'm up against, now that I know what I've been asked to do, I said, I need 1 year. And if I can't make some progress and see some change happening in 1 year, I'm either A, not the right person for the job, and this is not a good fit for me. B, there's just too much that I'm up against and I don't have what I need in order to support me to do it. Or if I see some change but not enough, then maybe I need to be moved into a position that I can have a little bit more reach. And sometimes that does come with promotions, because there is a certain level of authority that you get as you grow, go up the chain. But that's not the reason why I want to be able to initiate change. I don't want it to be because of my position. I want it to be because I'm doing it with the right intent, and I'm going about it the right way. So this is like a way I've been plugging myself into different committees and conversations in order to help me hear people and hear what's going on, and then I can take all that information in and find ways to start building bridges and making connections. And it's tiring, but it's really like fulfilling. It's just hard because I don't see the immediate results. It's kind of happening a little slowly. But that's kind of what I'm tasked with doing. And so when our CIO gets in front of everyone at one of our all staff meetings recently, and he starts talking about what our future is and starts making nods to automation and cloud, some of the people are kind of like, well, where do we fit in? And now he's kind of challenging them to think about it. And if they don't know where they fit in, then they need to have the conversation with him. So he's also promoting this. And so I'm in line, I'm aligned with what our CIO is promoting. And he's the one that oversees the entire, IT world.
So let's frame things for people. You have a boss. Your boss is a VP, right?
Yep.
And you have a meeting coming up with your chief information officer, which is your boss's boss. Is that right?
Yep.
And you believe that your boss, the VP, has tasked you to build relationships with other groups. Is that right?
Yep. Are
those other groups under the CIO, under other branches, or both?
Yeah, these other teams are under different VPs, under different directors who are under different VPs under the same CIO.
Okay. So they're under the CIO. So, okay, great. We're going to rock and roll here on a few things. First, you can go rewatch the VOD. But while you were talking, I was listening to you, and I said the answer to Kristen's question is going to be fear, fear, and fear. And within 10 seconds, you said all these people are afraid. So you actually know the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is another lecture for everyone. It's a realization. Most people spend most of their lives, or at least way too much of it, acting out of fear. I said earlier, executives are afraid for their jobs. They're afraid they're going to be found out to not be as good as all the money they're getting. They're afraid, and it makes them defensive. Fear is a real thing. A lot of you tell me you're afraid that you're going to fail. You're afraid you're not qualified. You're afraid you're not going to get the right opportunities. Fear is, maybe it was, somebody can spit out who wrote the quote, but there's this thing about fear is the mind killer. It's the little death. It's a famous quote. If you look up fear is the mind killer, you'll find it. Fear drives, and Churchill said we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Fear is so present. And the fact is, fear is the mind killer, I don't think comes from Dune. I see somebody saying it, but it's before that. Dune's requoting it. Frank Herbert didn't invent it. The point is, people spend so much of their time afraid. Maybe it's from Dune. Anyway, the point is you'll never master your fear. You'll never totally control it. But learning first to deal with your own fear and fight it is a huge issue. Oh, goody. We're buffering again. I love that. Come on. I'm going to wait for the buffering to stop because I see it. All right, we're back. We're having more trouble with that than usual. But you were right that your fellow people are afraid. They're afraid cloud are going to take their jobs. They're afraid of this, afraid of that. What I want to say to you first, Christian, when I first met you, you told me how great you were about working with other people and emoting with them and relating to them. And At the time, honestly, you sounded slightly full of yourself. You talked about yourself and your ability to relate to people a lot. But in this case, it is your superpower. You're in the right role for your skills, which is to go build these bridges. So, you know the problem. People are afraid. You know and have confidence in your own superpower. You don't know technology that well, although you've learned a lot, but you can relate to people. And probably your VP and maybe your CIO can't. So you are the right bridge builder. You also have identified correctly that positional authority matters, because some of these VPs won't be able to listen to a mere manager about anything. So without it being a reason to promote you, if you are a director and if you can earn that role, that will give you more credibility to manage people through the fear, where you can show them and say, look, first you do what you do well, which is build a relationship. Because I've said this before, but I'll showcase it for everyone here. I talk about the value of relationships all the time. And if you have a good relationship with someone, everyone on chat, listen up, think about this. You're going to go through the thought exercise. Kristen already knows it, but it's good for her again. Number one, think of someone you like. You like a lot. You trust them. You feel they're on their side. They're one of your best friends. They're an advocate. That person calls you up this Saturday. It's winter. Says, hey, I know it's cold and rainy. It might snow this weekend, but I need to move apartments. And I need you to come carry boxes. Help me pack and carry boxes in the rain and drive in the snow to my new apartment. This is a shitty job. But if you have a good friend who's asking, you'll probably be like, all right, you're important to me. I will come out in the snow and the rain and the cold and help you move, even though that's a shitty job. Now, think about someone you don't like, someone you don't respect, you feel is generally not dealt well with you. You're sitting next to them in a meeting. They drop their pen under your chair. And they're like, hey, could you grab my pen? How do you feel about this? The one person you were willing to go get their boxes in the rain on your Saturday. The other person, you're like, kind of fuck you. Crawl under the table yourself. And it's just your relationship. It's that much of a relationship difference. So, Kristen is good at building relationships. When you build relationships with these people, they will trust you when you say, look, sit with me and let me tell you how cloud can help you. Let me tell you how our group can work with you to make your job better. But you do have to be willing to adopt this new technology. You can do that. You want to have your facts straight. You want to be technically right. But relationship trust is so important. So important. So, let's see. All right. So, in that case, you're interested in how to influence. You can't influence until people are past their fear and they have a reason to trust you. A reason to either trust your information or your dedication. Now, have you read, I think you have. Have you read Leadership and Self-Deception?
Yep.
Yeah. So I talk all the time about this book. 40 Pink Dragons can pop it up. It's on our book list, called Leadership and Self-Deception. Leadership and Self-Deception talks about how to interact with others in a way that you're working with them in their best interest, in their honest best interest. That book tells you how to build this kind of relationship where they'll trust you. So if you want to drive cultural change, let's take a big step back. People, I said, are already fearful. They fear change more than about anything. Because even though arbitrarily, theoretically, change could be either good or bad. If I said, I'm going to give you a new house. Kristen, good news, I've been to your house. I'm going to give you a new house. It might be I'm going to give you a better house. It might be I'm going to give you a worse house. You don't actually know. But it's so much easier to imagine, oh my God, he's giving me a house. It's probably in a trailer park. The roof probably leaks. Than it is to imagine, wow, this dude's going to give me a beachfront house in the Italian Riviera, right? It's going to be on the ocean with a view and warm, and like, people are so much better at imagining the worst, so they fear change. You are entering, your job is change management and change evangelism. So I think you have to think about, how are you going to advocate for change? How are you going to, my machine is lagging, so I'm going to kill something to get rid of it because I think I know the cause. I think that's what's killing the video. 1 second. But how are you going to deal? Yeah, I found the problem, folks. It's good old Firefox. I've loaded it up with too many windows and it's sucking memory. Goodbye. Just close the browser. All right, our life is instantly better, I swear. So anyway, I think that'll fix it. If you want to manage cultural change, first build those relationships, know where you're going, and be patient. There's this idea in culture change. This is worth explaining. This is five-head for all you who love the five-head metaphor. Managing change is about managing how much heat you put on things. If there isn't enough heat and pressure to change, no one will ever bother because change is scary. But if there's too much heat and pressure to change too quickly, they will dig in because their fear overtakes them. So you're trying to have enough pressure that people are pushed out of their complacency, and that they don't have so much pressure that they dig in out of fear. You're shooting for that middle zone. And that's what you're aiming for as you look at cultural change. So I'll take a pause. Do you have questions? Because I have more advice then on how to ask your CIO for help, but I will come back to that. Do you have more questions on that, Kristen?
So I guess my strategy, what I'm working through, and by the way, I do think that it takes patience. And so what I'm trying to do is not focus, this maybe sounds wrong. I'm trying to not focus on the end results just yet. Right now, I'm trying to focus on the immediacy of like what my team is doing. And this other thing is something I'm slowly working through and seeing how it can organically kind of change wherever I can. I know I might have to push harder, might have to deal with some conflict. I'm anticipating that, but I'm doing my best to mitigate it. And so, like I said, I'm trying to get to know people and just reach out and start to get to know people and find common ground, things that we can agree on, that we want for our teams and for our organization. And then I'm trying to ask a lot of questions and really understand where their role is and where my role is and where our worlds collide, so that I can speak their language and understand the concerns that they have and not dismiss them. So I'm trying to do this, and it's not to get too granular, but before the cloud team started, we had like a task force that was pulled together, and let's just say somebody in leadership was like, we're going to put everything in cloud. And then like my boss got hired and he was like, we're not, we're going to not just put everything in cloud because nobody wins in cloud. It's just so expensive. There has to be a right use case for it. So what happened was these people were kind of told like, you're going to have jobs on this team, blah, blah, blah. So the people that would be the early adopters have been, in a way, some of them may have felt dismissed because they were on this task force and then like nothing ended up coming out of it for them. So I have a couple of barriers that I have to work through. So one of the other things that has happened since we last met is I had my first associate leave. And honestly, I thought it was going to be more difficult for me than it was, just because of who I am. But I think it was the right choice for him. He had a great opportunity. I could never give him what he's getting at this other place, and so I'm glad for it. But that presents more issues because my team is new. We don't have the right titles. I don't have the right job descriptions. In fact, this person wasn't even in the same pay band as what I actually need. So I have a lot of barriers to even getting another person filled into this role. I have some people that reached out to me that want to be in the role. Then I heard, oh, if you just like bring somebody into this role that wasn't even a part of any of these conversations, like these other people might get pissed off. So there's all this politics. And I'm like, okay, so on one hand, get over it, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, the people who might be my greatest supporters, maybe I need to patch things up a little bit because they're the ones who are embedded on these teams that I need to connect with. So, and they're the ones most likely because they had a desire, they understand the value, and they know why we took the strategy that we took in terms of like, you know, how to do it the right way, or at least they're learning. So I was thinking about starting like alongside this other track that I have where I'm just trying to get to know managers across the board. And this other idea of like bringing these people back together to do kind of like a, hey, you guys were all involved in the original discussion on this. I'd love to share with you like where we are, what our strategy is and where we're going and how you can play a role. And out of that, I'm going to ask them to talk with their managers if they're interested in partnering with us, because we won't be successful without them, because we're just going to be a core team. We are not going to be able to handle all the intake. That, like, I want them to know that we depend, like their success and our success is tied together. It's not like an us versus them. We're not replacing you. I need you to be willing to change and learn what is needed in order to do this type of work, because cloud's just another tool. So that's what I'm thinking is like, I'm thinking about level setting with the team, bringing in my boss to let him kind of speak to the group too, because some people are a little salty. Just to say, we did a 180 and it wasn't to dismiss the passion you guys brought or the things you guys learned. You know, it was necessary and it was the right choice. And here's why. So now going forward, what is your role? How can you be a part of this? And kind of invite those people. And a lot of those people that I know are coming from that group, those are the managers. Their managers are the ones that I've been trying to get to know first, because I know that they're going to likely go back and want to talk to their managers about it. So my strategy is kind of, I want to try to find some early adopters, some people who understand what we're trying to do and want to help us succeed, mend some of those broken relationships, and then at the same time be building a new relationship with their management or their directors. And then I'm hoping that we'll find ways to start partner. And so I guess I just wanted feedback on, does this strategy make sense? Am I crazy? Like, what could I do differently? Or how should I be thinking differently about this?
Yeah. So you love books. Okay. Not everybody here loves books. Kristen reads a lot of books. Read the book Switch by Chip and Dan Heath.
Yes, I did. And I have been using it already. I have been speaking all the time about how we need to shape the path, because we say we want this change, but we're not making it easy. All of the processes, all of the rules and regulations that we have in place are totally pushing back and making it more difficult. But I probably should reread it. I wish that there was
because you're not mentioning the part, you're doing a great job. God, I'm glad you've read it. Go look up the part again about success stories and bright spots. You want to give people a bright spot, an example that shows, oh, this worked. So you want to find a team that shows, oh, this worked. And I have an example where the plan worked, and where this partnership is a living example of something that worked. That comes from Chip and Dan Heath, the book Switch, and show them a bright spot. Show them how they're already partway there, how they're already partly winning. And that will that will get you the examples, because when others see the example of somebody winning, then they're like, oh, for those of you who don't know, what it basically says is, look, they found something out. these people, it turns out that if you, like when you have a coffee card and it says buy 5 coffees, get the 6th one free. If they give you a free punch on the card, like they say, hey, you bought a coffee today, that's 1 punch, and we're going to give you a free one, 2 punches, you're already 2 out of 5 there. You're way more likely when you feel like, oh, I'm almost there, I already have made some progress, to do more. Whereas if they're like, hey, buy 5 coffees, get the 6th one free, here's a card, no punches, you probably throw it away. It's feeling like you're making progress, and it's feeling like you've seen other people make progress. And it's weird, but that's how people look at things. So
No, that
for
makes
Kristen,
sense.
if she can show a
Yeah.
team succeeding, that will push her down that path. So I think your strategy is good. Because we said we were going to do a show about relating to executives, I feel like we should transition a little bit, if it's okay, to your meeting with the
Totally.
CIO. So here in about 10 days, 15 days, you have a meeting coming up with the Chief Information Officer. One of your questions is cultural change. I can talk a little bit about that. The first thing I would want to do is find out, is the CIO on board with your VP's plans? Do you know?
Yeah, I think that he is applying pressure in the same places that I will be applying pressure in that
The CIO or the VP?
the CIO, pressure on the VPs.
Great.
So I think that that's in my favor.
So let's take a step back. For anybody who's going to go meet with your boss's boss, first, in Kristen's case, her boss set her up for this, put her forward and said, I want you to meet with this manager who works for me. And this is a huge...
Recurring.
What's up?
It's recurring. It's once a quarter.
Yep. So first, if you ever wondered what a good boss looks like, Kristen has a boss who set her up. Some of you have bosses who are afraid of letting you talk to their boss. They're like, no, don't talk to him. You talk to me. I control everything. You don't speak to him or her. If you have that boss, you don't have a good boss. Kristen has a good boss. He's like, yeah, I want you to meet my boss. I want to put you forward. I want to encourage your career. I want to invest in you. And I think you have valuable things to say to my boss. And I'm not afraid. See, Kristen could go into that person in theory and say, oh, I work really hard. I love this company. My company is great. You know, I'm really happy to be here. But my boss, boy, wow. Like her boss could be afraid of that. That's not what he's afraid of, right? He's not afraid at all. And so he's putting her forward to have a new opportunity. So just think about that difference. If you have a boss, like if you ever wondered, is your boss good or not? Try talking to his boss or see what your boss thinks about it. And you'll learn real quick. If they don't want you to talk to their boss, it's very different. Kristen's boss, by the way, he's a VP. I've seen his resume. I've seen him on LinkedIn. He's accomplished. He doesn't need Kristen to like him or not, okay? Without being callous about it, Kristen is a relatively small cog in his big wheel. Her success or not is not going to, lead to his success or not other than normal. And so this isn't like, he's just a good guy. And I'm impressed. I'm positively impressed. But that's thing one. Thing two, though, is have you asked your boss how to interact with the CIO? Have you gotten his advice?
Yeah, I did. And in fact, I even reached out to the CIO today. I wanted to applaud him for something he had spoken up on in a leadership meeting. And then I let him know I would be sending over an agenda of some topics for our conversation and asked him if he had any expectations for our meeting to make sure that I wasn't wasting time. And so he had said, I'll answer this first, or I'll say this first and then I'll answer their question. Mm-hmm. He had said, Kristen, these meetings are for your benefit. So therefore you get to drive the agenda. We should spend some time getting to know each other a little better, your career aspirations, opportunities to expand your perspective, etc. So
perfect.
So I know what he's looking for,
yep.
Right? Which is going to help me. I just got that today. My boss has said he wants me to be myself. That's what he told me. Just be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
be candid. And then he said, be intentional on what you bring to the conversation.
Yep. And you obviously are, right? You're consulting all of us about it. So
Yep.
look, first,
That's what I've been told.
Kristen works in the center of the United States in healthcare. This is not an area known for its brilliant managers or its innovative culture. And yet, I want to showcase to all of you who are struggling and have bad bosses. By the way, you took this job basically because you needed a job, right? It wasn't like you handpicked this company. Is that right?
Yeah, like, I needed consistent income because I was a contractor who had to worry every month whether or not I was having more work coming in. And I was
Right.
offered a 6-month contract with the company
And
through an
so,
old manager of mine.
yeah. So I just want to point out for those of you who don't think you have good managers, Kristen rolled the random lotto dice and got, it came up great. And so I just want
Hmm.
you to realize there are good bosses and good companies out there, even in places that aren't known. Maybe if she was in Silicon Valley or I don't know, wherever you imagine great things are, um, you would be like, oh, it's no surprise she got a good boss. Or you're in high tech, or you're at Amazon, or you're at Microsoft. No surprise, here I am in Poughkeepsie and I don't have your opportunities. She's not in any of those places. So certainly
Yeah.
there was some luck involved, but she has that response from the CIO is the same thing I would have said, which is these meetings are for you and your development. So great. That's a super supportive message. And the CIO gets a gold star. Um, I get to award these. It's part of my world. But you um, now you have a roadmap, of course. But you also have an agenda. You have a mission for your own group. And so part of it is you can ask the CIO, hey, questions are very powerful. You can do what he said, help him get to know you and the other things he listed. But then you ask questions, you say, I think part of my mission is to help build relationships with other VPs under you and their teams about the value of cloud computing. Is that right? Or would that be valuable? Because they can answer a question. They don't have to envision things. They can answer a question. And then you say, do you have any advice on that? How can I align that with what you're doing? Do you have priorities in my area you can help me better understand? Questions are so powerful.
Yeah, my boss had I got into the conversation a little deeper with him because I wanted to kind of explore a little more. My boss is notorious for being a little bit vague on purpose and intentionally because it challenges me a lot. So I was asking him about like, well, I have a lot of opinions on where our culture is and where I think we could go and stuff that might maybe needs to change. Like, are those the types of things you think that I should bring to him? And he kind of said something along the lines of, if when bringing things to him that I want him to be aware of, bring it to him in a way that I'm asking a question about getting his help or his opinion or on how he would handle something. Like if how would you handle this
Mm-hmm.
situation? So let's say I'm up against someone who's really change adverse, and there's a lot of negative, talk happening behind the scenes, and he has teammates that are wanting to get over on other teams because of it, and because of him, we're he's a blocker for us moving forward in one of these initiatives or whatever. Well, is that something I would want to bring, right? I don't really care to talk to my boss's boss about an individual. That's, to me, that's not really like what I need. Um, so I'm just trying to think through, like, how do I assess, what do I bring? Like, is that an example? Is there something in that I need to bring to him? And then how is the right way to approach it? Like, I'm not sure how to assess what is valuable to him. And I know he's looking at it as what's valuable for me. So I'm having a hard time like kind of figuring out that balance. And like I wish I just had, I wish I had like some magical questions I could ask myself to grade something to decide whether or not I should bring it to the
Well,
table.
so here's this comes from Think Banhammer, who I don't think is watching here, but he's a former Twitch employee, now works at Amazon. He's been on our show before. And Banhammer and his wife shared the advice: be bright, be quick, be gone. The point being, first, be smart and well thought out, be organized. Be concise because be concise because time is of the essence for executives. And then get the hell out. Once the discussion is over, don't feel like you need to drag it out in order to get the most exposure. If you have an agenda, and is your meeting half an hour or an hour?
I think it's either 30 minutes or 45. I can't remember. I have to check that.
So don't feel that you have to rush out the door. But if that meeting reaches its conclusion in in say 25 minutes, say, "Hey, I've gotten what I need. Is there anything you need, or would 5 minutes back help you?" Don't be afraid to leave the room early, and definitely don't drag it over unless the executive is like, "I want to continue this conversation. It's okay to run over." I always told people who are going to meet with me, bring me something interesting, bring me something hard, bring me the hard decisions. Don't ask me obvious questions. Ask me hard questions. And so distill down the hardest things that affect the whole org. And I think it's okay to ask. The hard question you gave me about your CIO is, how do I drive culture change in an organization that has a lot of long-term leaders who are entrenched in their ways and fearful? And I think you could ask the CIO that. You could just ask him and say, "Look, I've noticed you have a lot of long-term veterans at the company, some of whom are fearful of new technology and disruption. When you run into that in your role, how do you manage that?" Just ask them straight up. How do you manage? How do you manage when your leaders, your veteran leaders, are entrenched in the old ways? How do you manage that? Just ask him. That's a hard question. And that's one where he can advise you. It's great.
Yeah. And I will actually be able to leverage it immediately in what I'm doing in my day to day. And it's so much better to approach it like that than try to catch somebody up on details of what's going on with these teams and these teams. And, that gets too, you can't be concise when you go down a rabbit hole like that. That sounds good.
So what were some of your other issues? You asked me a set of questions. We've kind of talked about them. What were some of the other issues to get ready for this meeting?
Well, I mean, I have like one that's a good question that I can ask and it's very relevant. But I guess a lot of the examples or things I could talk about are related to it. So maybe it's just about distilling, what's like the root question that I should ask. But I guess in general, like you gave that example that is a hard question. What other types of questions or in meetings like this that you've experienced, you've found beneficial or helpful? Or like if you're the person responding saying, "Well, I want us to get to know each other better," like what do you want to get to know? Like what's, I guess I want to hear from your perspective how you would approach this so that I can maybe get a different filter of what I'm bringing.
So the other thing you can bring to your executive is things he may not have visibility into. Um, in other words, he doesn't live your life and isn't in the trenches.
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing you can do is say, look, I know that what I'm about to share with you, I don't have the breadth to share with you an entire picture of your organization or of the company. What I can do is give you a window into my experience and that of my team so that you have at least one set of data points about the ground level. And then you pick what would you want him to know about your team's daily reality that perhaps he can use, or what is it you think he might not know? And
Mm-hmm.
so you're trying to give him like a day in the life of your team, their victories, their struggles that he might not see. So that could be anything. I don't know what it is, but I know I valued, because look, my executive day was meetings and budgets and hiring and company results and working with other executives. And I would lose track of the fact that like new hires in the team didn't know our mission or didn't know our vision or wondered why, in my case, why, a great question, like for those of you who know my org background, why did Twitch, let's take something simple. Why did Twitch use Gmail and the rest of Amazon use Outlook? Like they would want to know. Why is it we're on two different sets of systems? Or they would have different dumb question, not dumb, but they wouldn't have heard the answers. Why is Twitch a subsidiary and not a division? Why is, so you want to show him a little window into this is the experience of the common person in your team.
Mm.
So that is something you can do, which is give him a view and say, I don't know, feel free to ask me questions about my team or about my team's experience or my experience. Another thing you can choose, this is a little more, I wouldn't do this in meeting 1, but in case we don't talk about meeting 2 or meeting 3, I do think it's valid for you to talk briefly in one of your future meetings, not this one. So first piece of advice, don't do it in this one unless asked. Second piece of advice, do it in the second or third meeting, is talk about your experience as a female leader in his team or as a female in his team. Is it good? Is it bad? What is good? What is bad? Don't make it some cross to bear that you're asking for a bunch of anything, but just say, I'd like to give you a window into what I've experienced that is both good and that could use improvement as a female leader in your team. Here's
So
the
that's
good. Here's the
another
opportunities.
question that I was going to ask you then is, when speaking with people above you, I feel like oftentimes the things you need to, or that are most, that are priority, are going to be the negative things, the things that, aren't going well. How much should the balance be things that I'm sharing that are the positives and things that are the negatives? Because I know when leadership's talking to us, oftentimes the positives, it's like, thanks, but it's a very generic positive and it doesn't really mean a whole lot. And it's kind of just like, you feel like it was something they had to say. But I think it's also good to share some of those positives. Like I've had a couple new hires that I'm in the process of bringing on full time now, contractors. And one of them has mentioned to me on multiple occasions how this is like the healthiest team he's ever been on. And he goes on to explain why. And that's exciting for me.
Yeah.
Like I get jazzed about that because that's what I work so hard for. And I've like focused so much energy with my team. And And so like things like are, I guess, what's the balance? What do you like? What do you want to hear? What's the balance between like the good and the positive thing?
Yeah. So the balance can be as much as 50-50 good and bad, where 50 is the high water mark for good. But what you can expect is the good won't get much discussion. In other
Mm-hmm.
words, there's not much to discuss about good other than, oh, that's cool. Bad is then what gets problem solving. Now,
Right.
maybe good should get a little bit more than it does because the question is, great, how do we create more of that? But I
Right.
think it is good to bring it's good to bring a lot of positives to showcase those. Just don't expect people, bosses will be a little bit like, that's fantastic, glad to hear it. There was just an article about Andy Jassy, who's the guy who's going to take over for Jeff Bezos as CEO of Amazon. And when we would do good things, he would send a one-word email that said nice. Nice! Exclamation point. You get a new patent, you invent something, you ship something, he'd say nice. The point is that he wasn't down on good news. It's just he didn't like, yeah, it's nice. Awesome. Good work. But there isn't
Mm.
a lot to discuss necessarily. So
Yeah.
definitely you can tell your CIO, hey, look, one thing I want to do is share 3 things, 5 things, 2 things, 4 things, whatever the number is, pieces of good news. This happened, it's good. I have a team member who told me how happy he is to be a part of the team. I have this, I have that. But don't expect him to necessarily engage more than say, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And you got to remember that in the past, I got to know that I got to have some interactions with him, and one time when I think I've mentioned this before, when one of his peers, our chief marketing officer, I had just met her, and she said, "Oh, Jim, have you met Kristen?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, she's the one that tells me all the things I'm doing wrong." I don't
Yeah,
even know
you
why.
don't want that reputation. You
I don't
don't.
know why I have that reputation. It's because I asked one question. The reason why I think he said that is because they had just made a decision to move my role, all the people in my role, over to a different department. And I saw a lot of concern with how that was going to impact the team dynamic. And I told him because he asked, he wanted to know. So I told him honestly what I thought and how I felt about it. But he said it in jest. And I've talked with him since then, and we've had good conversations. And now he's agreed to meet with me every quarter out of the 800 people that are under him. So I guess it's not a bad thing, but I don't necessarily want to be like, you know, I don't like being the squeaky wheel all the time, but I feel like sometimes I kind of am because I'm willing to talk about it, I guess. And it's not because I just want to complain, like I want to solve. So I usually bring something up, ask questions, and then say, well, could we try this? Could we do? So I think it's okay, but yeah, I was just curious what that balance would be because I really don't want that to be my reputation with him.
Yeah, you don't. It's true. Um, but, look, you obviously made a good impression if he's going to meet with you because he isn't meeting with 755 of the other people in his org he's not meeting with.
Right.
So people make jokes, right? They make cracks. Look, this is true. Calvin Klein of the Gene Guy said there's no such thing as bad publicity. Within reason, you are better off making an impression, good or bad, than making no impression. And as long as you're asking decent questions, you may irritate a few people, but you're better off irritating a few people and making an impression a little bit than not making an impression. So
Mm-hmm.
I think standing out, you're better off than not. And look, I did this in my career. I've shared this before. By the way, for those of you who haven't read it or seen it, there's a new book out. I've talked about it called Working Backwards. It's by my old boss, Bill Carr, at Amazon. And I'm featured in it in exactly one place. I'm featured in it for about 2 sentences where a demo explodes in spectacular fashion in front of the entire company meeting. And I'm on stage when this demo goes wrong. Nonetheless, people remember that and have empathy for me, and how I handled it helped my career and made an impression with Bezos. The point is how you handle adversity and how you professionally present bad news can still be an asset to you. And so don't be afraid, again, better than being anonymous. A lot of you are afraid. Kristen doesn't have this problem, so I discuss for the rest of you. A lot of you are afraid to interact with your executives. By the way, we're going to do a little bit of a call out here. We discussed having 40 Pink Dragons on this show to share the mic with me because she was an executive as well and interacted with executives. She decided she preferred to stay behind the scenes. I'm still a fan of inviting her on sometime, but she has to make that decision. That said, her point was executives are all regular people, and you just talk to them and treat them like regular people. And they will stand up and respond to you. Someone here says, DT Twitch Talk, who was an Amazon intern last summer, says he's fearless. You will get so much further trying to be fearless. This is another book we talk about all the time. Jia Jiang, Rejection Proof.
Yeah,
Have you read that one, Kristen?
No, that's still on my list. I had put it off. Right now I'm reading another book by the Dan Chapheath, the Meaningful Moments, or The Power of Moments. It's really good.
Yep. Power of Moments is a good book. It's by Dan Heath, one of the Heath brothers from Chip and Dan Heath.
Yeah. So no, I haven't read Rejection Proof yet, but it's on the list.
I was impressed by Rejection Proof. For those of you who are interested, it's very, very short. It's a guy who wanted to overcome rejection, fear of rejection. Here's the thing, okay? A lot of you, most of you, Kristen, have you ever read 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss?
I did a long time ago.
So Tim Ferriss is very, very smart. He's obviously been wildly successful. I don't like all of his book, but the part I like is he quotes somebody else, and he says of that person's quote is, "I can generally tell how successful someone is going to be by the number of hard conversations they're willing to have." And that's so true. If you're willing to just be honest and forthright and engage someone, you'll have success. So with your CIO, I would say another good thing that you're good at, consider building some rapport with your CIO. Ask him at some point in this meeting, if you get the chance, what keeps you up at night? What are you most worried about? Particularly anything I can help with. That question will it sort of sounds like the magic loop. What can I help you with? But what keeps you up at night? I want to understand what challenges you're facing so that I can align my work with it. Will blow your executive away.
So one of the questions that I was thinking about asking, and I'd love your opinion on, because I really don't know if it's a good question or a terrible question. I was thinking about asking him if there was anything that he sees that I could, like, how do I want to phrase this? In what way does he think I could best help my boss? Where does he see me having the greatest impact, and what would he want out of all the things he knows that I don't even know? What does he think my boss needs from me the most? Because I know what my boss thinks he needs from me, but I'd be curious to hear if what my boss needs from me is the same thing that his boss thinks he needs. Because maybe there's things that I could do to help. Like, me and my boss have extremely opposite strengths. He's probably a lot more like you. And so we balance each other really well. And so I was thinking about asking around something along those lines to just hear what, like, without it being like prying. I'm not trying to ask him to share things with me that are inappropriate
Yeah.
of like, you know, his relationship and like what they're
Where do you
working.
think I can help my boss the most? With my strengths, what can I most help my boss achieve for you? That's the like,
Yeah.
that's the killer phrasing, because there's this idea I've talked about before called WIFM. It's an acronym. What's in it for me? The way you phrase it for your CIO is, with my strengths, what do you think I can most help my boss achieve for you? What do you need from us? That's power. And that will blow him away again. Like, holy shit, this woman's on fire. What can I help our group achieve? What can I help my boss achieve for you? Where can I help him?
Yeah, that's a great way to phrase it. That's exactly what I was trying to get at, Ethan, and I could not figure out the appropriate way.
Yeah.
So that was kind of what I meant to when I was asking you about how to figure out how to say something appropriately or not.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. That's gold right there, and I'm going to ask that.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a gold star question. Wow. Hey, remember me when you're a billionaire, all right? Because you're
Oh
going to
God.
kill it.
Yeah, right. I I can't
Wow.
tell you how much your streams and just conversation with you,
We're
and
halfway done. You can refill me sometime.
honestly with chat too. Like I was telling someone that I met on chat, like through you. I think you had called out in Discord that we both live in Ohio, and so I actually we met, we hung out for a bit,
Oh, all
um,
right. Yeah.
and yeah, and so I was just saying how um, like chat kind of, you all kind of pressured me to go ahead and ask for this mentorship with one of my boss's peers in another part of the company, and how I was intimidated to ask for another VP's time. But here I am. She asked me if I wanted to continue. I said I would love to continue if you want to continue. I have a whole nother year's worth of meetings set up with her, which is great. And she just introduced me to somebody else because she found out that I'm interested in coaching executives as a long-term career goal. So now I'm getting involved in the coaching program with my company, and am going to be looking at actually doing some coaching for other managers, which is kind of what I'm already trying to do. So I'm excited to learn about what that opportunity can do for me and give me experience in trying to do this. So it's just like crazy how the doors, like just the connections, like it's just so random, you know, if I follow it back through, and it's just my husband following an event on Twitch that I don't want to bring up again. And that's how he found Devin. And Devin was talking with you, and my husband brought me to you. And then you guys all encouraged me to just go for it, you know, to stop procrastinating and just do it. And it's just this whole progression of how I got where I get. It's just, it's kind of amazing, and it feels very random, but it's just getting the right encouragement. So I totally get why people are voting to say like, yeah, what they need is like peer relationship encouragement, network, mentorship, because it's huge and it is intimidating and it's hard to know where to start. But once you do, like it just snowballs. And so now I have so many mentors in like all in very different capacities.
And
And
there,
I discuss different things with each one. And then collectively, it is pushing me forward. In a lot of ways, it's expediting so much because I get so many different perspectives and things that would take me forever to learn on my own. But I'm learning from all these different people in different areas in the company, outside of the company, at different levels in the company. And so it's priceless. I can't speak to it enough. And for so many years, I was the person saying like, I want a mentor and I just can't find one.
so
And
this
you,
is, if I have one regret in my career, and I've shared this on the channel before, it's that I didn't take more risks and I wasn't more bold. So if you go to my website, I talk about how one of my goals is to help all of you shortcut the lessons I learned the hard way. And the lesson I've learned the hard way, and look, I've been super successful, right? I'm retired. I do this for fun. I skied 36 days this year, which is fucking ridiculous. but I
That's
still
all.
have time to coach and invest in people, and I love to. I got here by taking a pretty good number of risks, but what you can do better is be braver and do what Kristen did, and at her age, get those mentorships, reach out to people, build the relationships with the CIO, and be structured about it. Shit, that's why I honestly said, remember me when you're rich. She's going to do so well. And you can do this too. Remember, regular person, regular parents, Ohio, regular company, regular education. There's nothing gold plated about my background. I'm an Ohioan who went to school. She's an Ohioan who went to school. Okay, some of you, I know some of our audience, I haven't seen them check in here tonight. They're from other countries, but you can all do this. This is the encouragement part. You can do this. And Kristen's just our example here.
And even I still feel like when you're saying that stuff, I'm just kind of like, whatever. Like that's impossible. I don't see me doing that. Like I honestly can't see it. I can't see it happening. But what I can tell you is that every step that I take, when I look back, I see how far I've come. And there's so many times that I feel like when I take steps forward, I'm actually moving backwards, but somehow it works out. And yeah, I have no idea where I'll be in 10 years. And I'm okay with not knowing because in general, like I'm just trying to be present today. Like that's as far as I can really think. Um, and as long as I'm doing something that I love doing and I feel fulfilled and I'm growing, like that's all I can ask
But
for.
that'll work out, right? Like the direction is up and to the right. It's in the right direction. And so yeah, sure, you have no idea where you'll be in 10 years. None of us do. I don't either, by the way. Like I try to have a 10-year plan, unlike some people. I don't know where I'll be in 10 years. But I have goals and aspirations, and I know that I'm headed in a good direction. And as long as you're making progress, you can't predict your 10-year outcome, but you can predict that as long as I keep doing good things and growing, I'll end up somewhere good. Again,
Mm.
absent disaster, right? We can never predict, whatever, nuclear war, economic turmoil, illness, God forbid, any of those things. But they generally work out. So, sorry, Kristen, I'm looking in chat and somebody's asking if to get ahead they should move to Ohio.
40 pink dragons. Ohio's not that bad.
Mm-mm.
It's a little boring in some ways, but there's a lot of things to like.
There's nothing wrong with Ohio. What I tell people, quite honestly, is Ohio is very vanilla. Like it's a standard part of America. It isn't super sexy in some ways, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's not. I won't name anything because then I'll have people down on me. If there's parts of America you might be like blah and really dig, sort of dog on, Ohio is none of those.
Let's just say I used to live in Youngstown, Ohio, and I don't live in Youngstown, Ohio anymore. So I feel great about Ohio now. Like it's a different, I'm in a different part of Ohio. So,
Yeah, Youngstown was one of the meth capitals for sure. But there are several of those. I'm not picking on just Youngstown.
yeah.
Okay,
Well, there's a lot of things that came out of Youngstown. I mean, there was a lot of mafia stuff that went around in Youngstown. There's still an active mafia today. It's just not as well known. Like, there's been a lot of interesting things.
Yeah, you think the mafia is in Italy or New York, but it's Youngstown. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
it's the Niles. No. But yeah, so anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say to chat is that Ethan's saying that I'm an example here, but I don't feel like I have a fucking clue what I'm doing half the time. And I
Which is
really
important. That's why you're an example. You're succeeding despite being semi-clueless.
yeah, semi clueless. It's I just want to encourage people because like I don't have it all figured out. I just don't. And that's all right. I've learned to be okay with that. I feel like I'm a lot more successful when I stopped trying to control my success and I just started like living out my values and things just are going well. So I guess that's what I would encourage people to do is figure out what you care about and then like make sure whatever job you're doing, you get to do those things. because you're naturally inclined to be more driven when you get to do things that you believe in. So that's my advice. We'll see how it works out for me.
All right. Well, I'm going to see if we have any questions from the audience. But meanwhile, Kristen, have I answered your questions, or do you have more stuff we need to cover?
No, this was great. I feel like, in your own words, I got what I needed.
All right.
So
Well,
I'm excited.
We have a few questions. Let me skim them and see if any of them involve you. Because Kristen always comes on late, and it's 11:30 where she is. She's a night owl, and now she has more books to read.
Yeah. Plus,
Because she has rejection proof, and she has to recheck that one section, a switch, and she's going to kill it with the CIO. You know, there's part of me, see, I shouldn't do this. There's part of me, I want to like get engaged with this CIO and like tell him what's up, but I'm going to let Kristen handle it. You know, because he seems like a good guy, so he probably doesn't need me to tell him what's up.
He is a really good guy. And he's interesting because he came in and from the get-go has said when he's going to retire. So I know I only have like 3 years left with him. So
Which
I
is
know
a long time.
he's he's working to leave his legacy. He has lofty goals that I'm aware of what the change he's trying to make. So it's not, he's not being complacent. I can certainly say that. And I think he's a great leader. I have a lot of respect for him. So.
All right. So, folks, I'm going to switch to answering questions. So we're going to post the usual, hey, if you want me to answer this, vote. Kristen, look, I told chat this, you'll read it in there if you didn't see it. I am so proud. Like when I met you, I wondered, you seemed very humble. You sent me a cool video. Kristen went out on a limb, by the way. She took a risk. She said, look, I basically don't know anything about Twitch. My husband told me I should check you out. But I figured I couldn't be on Twitch if I wasn't willing to be on video. So here's my audition video.
Yeah. Oh, man, that was so uncomfortable.
And now I consider Kristen a true friend. Like, I've been to her house. She and her husband and her kids hosted me for dinner. I got to visit their home in Ohio when I was there. I look forward to doing it again. She has been to visit me here in Seattle. We have built a relationship over this. I am invested in her career. I know she's invested in my show and my aspirations. I hope to know Kristen at some level the rest of my life. And she is succeeding to the degree I can be a proud papa, because I am old enough to be a proud papa of Kristen, of her career progress. She is killing it. And I want all of you, again, I opened the show with this, to believe it's possible. She is a regular woman who reached out and took a chance on Twitch, working in a regular job in a great company with Ohio. She got some good luck on bosses. Luck will always play a part in everybody's career. You'll have good luck and bad luck, and I've had both. She has had good luck here. She'll have bad luck or has had bad luck in other places. But she is doing the right things, doing the work. And that is going to pay off for her. It is paying off. She has a VP mentor, a woman in tech. She has a supportive boss. She's going to meet with the chief information officer. She's on the road. So all of you can do this. And I know that you don't all feel that way right now, but I want to encourage you can. Kristen, I'm going to let you go. You can stay up or you can drop off. I'm going to answer some of the questions that people have in chat.
Sounds good.
And I look forward to talking to you next time. When COVID is over, I look forward to having you out here.
I'll be out in the summer. So
you're going to be out in the summer? Fantastic. Do you know when yet?
No, I haven't booked tickets yet, but probably July. My brother has a second on the way, due in June. So plan is to come out in July. We'll probably be out there for a couple weeks. So.
All right. Well, aim. I might be gone until the end of July, so aim late and first couple days of August.
Okay.
Just switch it a tiny bit late. We can talk about it offline, but I want to see you when you're out here, and it would kill me if I was away. It would also kill me to have to come home from an epic trip. So don't put me in that position. because it's all about me.
Yes, thanks. And thanks for the kind words, Ethan. I mean, I don't know if it's the alcohol or what, but I'm, maybe blushing a little bit, but thank you.
You're more than welcome. All right, so I'm gonna let you go. Let me see. Let me find the Zoom window. I'll let Kristen go. She's been great. She's always so transparent on this. You're gonna kill this. Hey, will you report back at least in our Discord about how your meeting goes?
Yep.
Because I want to hear.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I have some crazy ideas too that I may or may not bring up at some point. I got to get my agenda together, and I'm gonna go over it with my boss, not because he asked me to or I have to. I want his buy-in. I know he's supporting me, and I want him to know what I'm bringing to the table. So, get a little bit of alignment there.
All right, sweet.
All right.
Have a great night. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye. All right, so we're out of there. We're going to switch to quick Q&A. 40 PD, you can pin the first question. We'll hit that. Oh, Windows, come on. Hey, it's Big Me. For those of you who don't know, by the way, I love how this camera is showing right now. It's got my favorite piece of artwork on. This is art. This was my one souvenir from Twitch. I have swag from Twitch, shirts and stuff, but this piece of art, I first saw at Twitch and I just love it. If you don't get it, have someone in chat explain it to you. And then this, if you haven't seen it, is it's old. It's the Prayer of Jabez. Oh, that you would bless me indeed and enlarge my territory, that your hand would be with me, and that you would keep me from evil, that I may not cause pain. From the Old Testament, 1 Chronicles 4:10. Don't care if you believe in God or not, if you whatever. It's good wisdom. The part at the end is really important to me, that you would keep me from evil, that I may not cause pain. I hope always that my advice is supportive to you and that I help you do better. I try to remember that. It's interesting. It's fascinating to me, the wisdom. All right, here we go. Questions. If your manager and exec differ in opinion, then whose opinion do you go with? Who do you follow? Well, first, that's a hell of a problem, right? Like, if they're not aligned, I guess I'd talk to my manager and say, like, hey, I assume you're aware, like, your boss doesn't agree with you, or I'm not selling anybody out here, but maybe you two should straighten that shit out. Second, when push comes to shove, the exec wins, but I would sure try and help my manager. Like, I'd say, like, help me understand. What can we do? Do you need help changing the exec's mind? But in the end, the exec is the one with the power, right? The manager, I've had most of this enormous drink now. There's like only sloshy juice in the bottom. It's really good, by the way. The exec can fire that manager in a heartbeat and ignore him, So in the end, the exec wins, but that isn't how it should work. It shouldn't be win-lose. They should be aligned. So the thing I would work on there is try and help them get alignment, try and be aware, and make sure you've understood. There's a good chance that what you think is a difference in opinion is a difference in how they're expressing things. But in the brutal end, this will sound bad, but oh well, I do it all the time. Execs can dispose of managers like so much used toilet paper, one quick flush. So if the exec really disagrees with the manager, you just have to be careful, because managers can dispose of you the same way. So you have to be careful how you handle that, but the exec's going to win in the end. That said, this shouldn't be win-lose. It shouldn't be this way. Like, this is the wrong discussion. I would try and reconcile the difference or stay the hell out of it. And if you're in a company where you can't do that, get out. Go to a better company. I took on mentoring a new person today, an interesting woman. She works, I won't go into it too much, but she works for a 141-year-old German company. And if you want to imagine like my definition of hell, imagine a rigid European company with a 141-year history in retail trying to operate in the modern world. She knows nothing about Twitch, by the way. She was introduced to me by someone else. I find her interesting. She works in the travel industry, and because half my family's German. But what a I can't even imagine. So she's here in America. She came to America and she's like, I don't think I can go back to Germany because I love. So she has an accent. I can't do a thick German accent, but she's like, I love your American dream. I see your American dream and I think, how can I be a part of this and take part in it? I see opportunity everywhere. And my company, they are only afraid. And I'm like, yeah, because you work for like something that was cast in concrete 100 years ago. So it's going to be fun. I take on hard mentoring challenges, right? Like, frankly, Kristen's a dreamboat, right? She's succeeding. She's working hard. She's talking to these executives. She takes advice well. She reads all these books. Now I have a hard one. Like, how do I help this German lady come to America and be successful and get the hell out of her, like, casting concrete ancient company? So the point is here, though, you want to reconcile these opinions or get the hell out. So I don't know who asked this question. I don't know if they're still around or if I answered it, but I would try and keep my head low and I would try and politely prompt my manager, like, hey, I don't quite understand. It seems like the big boss said something different. Can you help me? So anyway. All right, Ed G, if you have questions for us, man, I love your questions. So if anybody doesn't know, Ed G lives out there in chat. I got to share this. Ed G is our requisite, like, non-standard white-collar professional. So much of our chat is geeks or finance folks or marketers or people from the internet. And Ed, man, he pours concrete and welds sheet metal and builds shit for a living. He wants to know if we need him here to rehab stuff. And the answer is yes. God, I have a construction project for you. Do you deal with... we need someone so badly who does airflow and air conditioning and ventilation. What? One of the mods review? Well, you cuss so much, man. The auto mod catches you all the time. Like you say variations of the F word in basically every third sentence, and auto mod catches all of those. Try and ask a question that doesn't contain the F word, Ed, and we'll answer it. All right, 40 PD. Let's move on to the next question, though. All right. God, I'm having a good time tonight. Part of it is because this drink had several shots in it. It was a big glass and it's gone. But it was really good. And for those of you who love to have fun, I didn't advertise this. Devin and I are going to do a show next Thursday. I'm going to do a show next Tuesday. It's a show that's way overdue. So we're going to talk about what's next while we get to this next question. Shit. Did I put this in? That I didn't update this. Wow, that's terrible. That is totally my fault. So our next show. Now I'm pissed. I'm going to go fix this. Because I know I fixed it, but then I had to restart the stupid chat bot. And it must have gotten eaten. Oh, I'm so mad. I must not have hit submit. Okay, I'm bent. Then we'll answer this question. Let's see. Next show. Okay, so our next show is going to be Tuesday at 3:30. And I'm going to need one of my mods to show up because 40 Pink Dragons has stuff to do. So it's Tuesday, I think that's 3/2 at 3:30 p.m. And the topic is going to be basic health. And what the hell is basic health? What could you want to talk about? Well, I was a big guy as a kid. I weigh about 195 right now, and I grew up weighing 278 to 282. So I've lost 272. So I've lost about 80 pounds and kept it off for 25 years, which no one does. We're going to talk about that. And then Devin and I will do a show Thursday the 4th. I'm going to go see Devin and going to hang out with him. I'm sure we'll do a show. I have questions for him. All of you always love the Devin shows. So let's see if I fix this. Damn it. All right. So is this the next show now? Basic health. Yeah, that's close enough. So come back. Plan on coming back for both those shows. All right. Question. Execs don't have time for every detail. How do you decide what exec need to know and bring in the right level? All right. First, focus on what they need, not what you need. Second, ask questions. Before you go in or with them, ask. But third, think about the company mission. What is the company trying to achieve? So don't bring them your micro stuff. Bring them the biggest issue, the broadest issue. They don't need to know every detail. They need to know enough to decide. So try and boil it down and say, look, I need a decision between A and B. I can answer questions if you have them, but I need to know, do we value profit or growth more? Do we value hiring or, you're trying to ask them either or strategic questions. What you're not trying to ask them is say, hey, I have a question about should the button be red or blue? And I really like blue, but some of the other managers like red. Like, this is hell, right? Like, you should not be asking them, do I take the blue pill or the red pill? This is too low level for them. You want to ask them, hey, do you get the metaphor of this painting with Alice in Wonderland and how that relates to the Matrix? And what do you think about that? Is the Matrix relevant to our modern society, and is it a deep commentary? Not, hey, do you understand red pill versus blue pill? You want to go up to that level. So when you bring in the right level, you're trying to think about the company's mission. And that does mean you need to be educated on the company mission. What can you read about the company mission in the last letter to shareholders, in what's in the news, in what your executive has said? And if you don't know what else to do, you say, look, I know my group is a small part of your organization. Here's what we're working on. Is there anything you would change or emphasize? And you let them do the hard work. You just need to be open to input. Your key message to your executive is very simple. I care. I'm hardworking. I want to help. What do you need? It's a variation of the magic loop. It's a variation of how can I help you? All right, next question. And most of the questions have very few votes. So it's been a 2-hour stream. My drink is gone. We're going to call it a quick night. Let's answer, while this question gets posted, let's answer Ed's question. How much screw you should I say to an exec without being an idiot? If you're going to tell an exec screw you, have a good reason. It's okay, by the way. Executives are generally tough, the good ones. Let me tell you a story. This is a good story. So Andy Jassy is going to be the new CEO of Amazon. Jeff Bezos is retiring this summer, and Andy Jassy, his protege, is going to take over. And Andy said to an exec I know, hey, I noticed. The exec said to him, this is screw you. The exec said, your advice about my business isn't always been very good. I don't think you understand my business very well. And part of my job, I've realized, is to sometimes not listen to you. And to Andy's credit, as I'm told by this executive, what he said is, yeah, I noticed that. I noticed about 18 months ago you stopped listening to me. Now, if you think about it, for the new CEO of Amazon to be like, yeah, I noticed about 18 months ago you kind of stopped listening to me. And for Andy to be like, yeah, that's cool. I get it. Like, you have your own judgment. And I now am in the role of giving advice, not giving orders. Because when I try and give orders, you're going to ignore me. Is very, very mature. He's saying, look, I have input for you, but you're the expert in this area and you're a vice president. I trust you. And if I ever get to where I don't trust you, I'll just fire you. So until then, do what you believe. Yes, I hope you listen to me. I hope you think about it, but do what you believe. So this question of how much screw you to say, you say screw you not in the sense of like, screw you, I hate you, I don't respect you. But instead you say, hey, I've realized like sometimes because I'm in the trenches, I know better than you. And so I'm going to listen to you when it makes sense, but I'm going to apply my own judgment and I'm going to be willing. This is important. I understand I live and die. When I say screw you, I'm placing a bet. I'm placing a bet with my job that I'm right. Most bosses are totally good with that. I'm willing to place a bet with my job where I put my job on the line and say I'm right. Let me tell another story since you guys like that one. Years ago, Amazon bought its very first game studio. It was a game studio called Reflexive Entertainment. It was a tiny little mobile game studio that also had a game sales business long ago. I don't even know if they exist on Google, if you can find them. But an executive named Greg Hart wanted to buy them. And Greg had been with the company a long time and blah, blah, blah. And he went to Bezos and said, look, I want to spend $11 million, which in modern Amazon terms is not even a mouse fart. But back then it was a little more. It was $11 or $13 million. And I want to spend this money to buy Reflexive Entertainment. And Jeff said, I don't really understand this business. I don't understand why you want to buy it. But I understand that you really believe in it. And I understand that you're willing to put your badge on the table because you believe in this. And so putting your badge on the table, your badge gets you into the building and is your ID. So putting your badge on the table meant I am willing to risk my job. If this doesn't work out, here's my badge. You can take it. So if you're willing to put your badge on the table to buy this company that I don't understand, sure, go ahead. Because I trust you more than I need $11 million in Bezos' case. So Ed just said there's a balance between getting fired and getting promoted. That is completely true. The balance is if you don't take enough risk, you'll get fired. If you take too much risk and you're too much of a loudmouth, you'll also get fired. I have gotten fired for being too much of a loudmouth, for shooting my mouth off and not knowing what the hell I was talking about and being too critical of valuable people. I have gotten fired for this. They called it a layoff. There was only one person in the layoff. You decide what that means. They laid off one person. It was me. I'd call that fired. They called it a layoff. Regardless, when that happens, you've gone too far because you're shooting your mouth off without knowing what the hell you're talking about, which is what I did as a young man. Note to all the people listening in chat, you can fuck up royally and still have a great career. Everything is recoverable. So all of you who have suicidal thoughts, please stop, get help. That's another aside. Don't do that because it's recoverable. I got my ass fired, laid off. You can do the same and recover. Yes, a one-person layoff. I was the only person in a one-person layoff. Epic, right? But when you go out on one of those limbs, you have to tell the truth and have an opinion and have the courage of your conviction and deliver results from it. Then you're a hero. Because not taking risk, that takes you to this woman I just met who works for a 141-year-old company that's afraid of its own shadow because all they care about anymore is preserving their legacy and their great name. I don't know how to do a German accent again. I'll have to work on it. Maybe there's somebody here who speaks German. We have to preserve a 141 years we have been in business. We cannot risk that future. All fathers, all grandfathers, all great-grandfathers were in this job. We cannot dishonor them. Well, you're going to fuck up. You're going to ruin it because you can't move forward. You're rigid. So, all right, next question. When you initiate change, where do you start? Do you draw a map of some sort? Do you bring it upwards or horizontally first? Oh boy. So first, much sounds like Japanese. Well, I'm not going to try it. I'll probably get in big trouble and get banned on Twitch if I give my Japanese impression. So I won't do that. When you initiate change, where do you start? Look, read the book Switch by Chip and Dan Heath. I love faking accents, by the way. I love making fun of the Scottish. I don't know any Scottish. I don't think there's any Scottish on here. But, like, if it's not Scottish, it's crap. It's so much fun. I'm sure they think I'm terrible, too. But the Scotch are magnificent. When you initiate change, where you start, read the book Switch. And then I would say you go horizontally first. But the big thing is not horizontally versus upwards. The big thing is pace. How slowly people can only stand so much change at once. You have to go change slowly. And you have to... People fear change. There's so many good books on this. Switch is a good book. If you like really short books, even shorter than Switch, read Who Moved My Cheese? Read I Moved Your Cheese. I can't remember who wrote Who Moved My Cheese? I think it's Spencer somebody. The book I Moved Your Cheese is by Deepak Malhotra. You have to read them both in that order. Who Moved My Cheese? And then I Moved Your Cheese. But Deepak Malhotra's book, I Moved Your Cheese, is amazing. It's one of my favorite short books. Rico. Oh, I see your comment. I like fake accents too. My girlfriend hates it. Yeah, so ask 40 Pink Dragons in chat how much she likes my fake accents. Hint, she doesn't. Whereas they make me laugh at myself, so maybe it's because my drink is gone, but I like them. Here's the winning thing, though. She likes my fake accents more than my singing. More than my singing. So just ask her if she'd rather I do fake accents or if I sing. You got to know. This is good, right? Know what people will choose. They will choose fake accents over singing. What you want to do is lead people through change and make them feel safe. I said earlier that being safe, people resist change because they're afraid. God, fear is such a motivator in our society. People resist things. Look at all these people who are afraid with coronavirus. Everything you see is about fear. I'm afraid I'm going to get it. I'm afraid you're taking away my freedom. I'm afraid that if I wear a mask, you're telling me what to do. I'm afraid of government control. I'm afraid you're ordering me around. I'm afraid the virus has a microchip in it. I'm afraid. It's all fear. I'm afraid that if I do this, I'll look weak. I'm afraid I won't get to see. So much fear. It's about managing your fear. Let's see. We have one more question with 2 votes. I'll take it. It's long. It's an epic question. I struggle feeling good about my job from an ethical perspective. Ooh, interesting. All right, good question. The direction my org is moving is not benefiting the customer. And it's clear leadership is committed to this direction. I work in sales at a very big tech company, probably Amazon. He just didn't say that. I don't know if it's true. So I'm on the front lines having to push these products that don't seem to help the customer. I have an awesome manager who's in my corner, but the negative direction stems from executives. Any advice? Don't sell something you ethically don't believe in. If it's really an ethical question, leave if you possibly can. If you can't, try to make it work for the customer. Try to make it good for the customer somehow if it's possible, or tell them honestly and have them not buy it. I once had a car salesman. This is really funny. I went into a car dealership. The car salesman told me he was leaving and that I shouldn't buy the car because the dealership sucked and was like a terrible place. I loved him for it. I felt terrible. He's like, don't tell anybody this, but this deal is not a good deal. You shouldn't do it. You know, I realize you can't do that all the time. So if you're trapped in this question, you can try to give feedback. Try to get customer feedback. You can try to give feedback up the chain, and you can try to change it. But in the end, if the executives, I would try and understand from the executives, why are you doing this? I would go ask them. If you have the opportunity, look, you got to be willing to lose your job. But then you go ask the executive and say, I don't understand why this is good for customers. Can I help you change it so it is? And if they tell you shut up and sell it, get your resume out. Go visit our Discord channel and our Discord channel on resume help and get a better job. Because if you care this much about customers, there's a good place for you. And where you're at isn't it. This is another piece I want to encourage a lot of you. I know a few of the people in our Discord have really struggled to find jobs, but most of you can change jobs. Particularly, the economy is about to recover. Look, newsflash, you heard it here first. COVID is down. The economy is going to boom in 2021, I think, because even though the economy is shit and our supply chain is all disrupted, the fact is it's about to be good news and the world's going to reopen for business and it's going to be positive compared to where it is. So this is the time to take risks, to start a business, to go after it, because we've come through the bad times and we're about to come out, and the sooner you jump on it, the better you're going to do. All right. Let's see. The last thing, and this is funny. I got to do this. There's some dude named Brian Cornell. Brian, are you still here? Sound off in chat. You've asked a question, and it only got one vote. Nobody loved poor Brian. So I'm not going to answer it if you're not still here. So we'll see if Brian is still here. Oh, he is here. Brian. All right. We're gonna honor Brian. Last question of the night. Dear Brian. Hi, my name is Brian, and I am here in chat. I am a student at New York University for Information Systems Management. I like creating videos. I don't feel like I want to be a coding rat or be a part of a company, but I'm on this path as a backdoor because I'm not sure how I can make a living off creative making of videos. All right, chat, help Brian out. What can he do? Chat, you got to answer this. What can poor Brian do? He has a passion to manage videos, but he needs to not starve and he's sick of ramen. So, chat, go watch Devin Nash. That's a good suggestion. The Devin Nash, man. That's like everyone loves that. Do you know Devin? Love Devin. All right. So that's one thing. So look, you do have to find a way to make a living off what you love. I'll go for the middle ground. These people are telling you how to make a creative living. Is there a way where you can do some of this stuff, like use coding to make better videos, or be a part of a company that's somehow in creative video making? So an ad company or a creative agency or marketing agency where you can apply what you love, which is making videos, but where the money isn't from you being a creative and an artiste yourself, but as a part of something bigger. That's another strategy. The other thing, though, is you may have to be willing to starve for a while. Like, a good question is, how much ramen are you willing to eat to not be a coding rat? In other words, do you want money more than you want to do stuff you love, or do you want to do stuff you love more than you want money? And hopefully you can find a way to do both over time. But in the beginning, how much pain are you willing to take? I don't know the answer. Yeah, and you can obviously team up with others. Is there some way that you can make a living helping others? Is there a way that you can get put forward in that? I am not the best person to advise you on this, though. This is a Devin Nash, and I'm glad you're watching Devin. Watch Devin and learn coding, because if you ever do need to avoid starvation, at least you'll have something. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to call it a night. I finished the drink. It's more than 2 hours. I'm sure it's old, but no spoilers. 40 Pink Dragons and I are watching a new TV series we enjoy very much. I'll leave it at that. Actually, it's old. That's why I don't want any spoilers. Hey, President Obama, I saw you joined earlier, and I want to thank you for dropping by. Everyone, give the ex-president, the retired president, a big high five. I mean, it is an honor. I watched you join the channel today and have President Obama here. Good job. I want to tell you. Okay, so good job on healthcare. Bad job on choosing a successor. But overall, I give your presidency, and this is hard. I've been a Republican voter most of my life. Maybe not recently. We'll leave that aside. I wasn't a fan at first, but overall, I'd give you like a 7.5, 8 on your presidency, which that's like a max score from someone who pretty much grew up thinking Reagan was awesome. So anyway, I'm just being honest. So an 8, that's like you killed it. Plus, I think you're funny. So, all right. Hey, everybody, it's been fun. I'll see you next Tuesday, I hope. I fixed this command. I had a good drink. And I'll be on Devin's channel sometime next week. We'll do a show. I hope you got a lot out of this. Remember, the number one, if you didn't fill out our survey, let's see if it's here. This is your last chance if you're new. Oh, shit. Where'd that survey link go? Let me go get it. If you didn't fill out the survey, I'm interested in your input. So here we go. We'll copy and paste it because other people can't. Anybody who hasn't, this takes you 60 seconds. Come on, help a brother out. So with that said, I will see you in a few days. I hope you got a lot out of this. Have a good night, and see you later.